Happy Constitution Day. Well, belatedly, it was on September 17th, but did anybody from the United States even notice? It's not a real popular holiday, which is kind of surprising. Americans really like patriotic holidays, Flag Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day. Yet Constitution Day isn't one we really give a lot of acknowledgement to. Now, what's it celebrate? Well, on September 17th, 1788, the Constitution was ratified and put into effect as the law of the land in the United States of America. Of course, before this we had the Articles of Confederation, which largely failed as a federal government, so the United States needed to replace it with something a little more efficient, a little more structured, and a little more central. Hence we get the Constitution. So the Constitution at this point has lasted some 227 years, which is very impressive. Other democracies, such as France and Italy, have had to restructure their constitutions and their democratic governments several times since World War II. So why hasn't the United States, why have they been able to stick with one constitution for that entire time? Well, the answer is actually fairly simple. It's an extremely flexible document. It has amendments. We've had 28 so far. Of course, the first 10 right off the bat, which are the Bill of Rights, and 18 more to make the Constitution relevant, more permanent to its times, including things like banning slavery, giving the women the right to vote, banning alcohol, and unbanning alcohol. So yeah, we have two amendments that don't really do much except for one does something and the other undoes it. The point is that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. It has a lot of flexibility in it. It can be changed and controlled in certain ways. Now, there are parts of it that are ironclad in theory, but almost all of it's up for negotiation because we have a Supreme Court. Yes, the Supreme Court is the part of the government that decides whether something's constitutional or unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court doesn't have to stay the same on that opinion. They can change. Take segregation in the South. In Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, they decided that segregation was perfectly legal. However, a little over 50 years later, in 1954, in Brown versus the Board of Education, they changed their mind. They decided, well, we were wrong. That wasn't constitutional. You can't segregate. So everything is up for a certain degree of interpretation depending on the times. That's the brilliance of the Constitution. It can adapt with the people who are living underneath it. Today's government may have problems, and maybe there's something we can do through the Constitution or in the Constitution to make those things improve. Take the recent healthcare hubbub. That went to the Supreme Court twice to determine whether those things were constitutional. That was really the only issue for the Supreme Court. It wasn't whether they approved or disapproved of the healthcare law. It was whether they felt it was constitutional or not. By jurisprudence, they really don't make laws. They don't consider those things. They only determine whether those things are constitutional. Take the Second Amendment of the United States, one of the more popular amendments in today's popular parlance. The Second Amendment did not apply to independent gun rights until after World War II. It didn't start to get applied until the late 40s. Nobody had challenged independent gun rights based upon the Constitution. Once that happened, the courts had to make a decision, and they did. They made a decision. They decided the Second Amendment does apply to independent owner gun rights. Hence, we have a reinterpretation and a reimagination of the Second Amendment to make it more useful to certain people in modern times. That's the beauty of the Constitution. So why don't we celebrate Constitution Day? It should be a big patriotic day in American history. Well, I don't know. I'm at a loss for it. So from now on, I think I'll read the entire Constitution every day on Constitution Day. That's right, I'll get out my book here and I'll read the entire thing, cover to cover. And, well, it's not quite the Gettysburg Address or the Declaration of Independence. It's not terribly long, but it's still rather lengthy, and there's a lot of, procedural things in it, and, maybe reading the Constitution out loud isn't such a good idea. Maybe that's why we don't celebrate it. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. Well, maybe just that part. I hope that gives you a little historical perspective.